After the release of Sonic Heroes and Sonic Battle, Sonic Team felt that it was time to finish out the Sonic Advance series and release one last game. Sonic Advance 3 was released in North America on June 7, 2004, about half a year after the release of Sonic Battle and Sonic Heroes. This was also the last Sonic game to be released in the early 2000s, before a certain other game made it to the scene. Once again, Sonic Team partnered with Dimps to make this game. It was difficult researching sales information, but it looks like Sonic Advance 3 sold around 1 million copies, which is about the same as Sonic Advance 1 and 2. Sonic Advance 3 received mixed to fairly positive reviews, but regardless of what anyone says, I think it's the best game in the Sonic Advance trilogy. And I'd even go as far as to say that I think it's the best 2D Sonic game out there. By this point in 2004, I had played Sonic Advance 1 and 2, and I was eager to play more Sonic games. I remember seeing a school newspaper ad for Sonic Advance 3 as a kid, and I wanted to play it so bad. And I vividly remember how I got the game as well. Me, my mother, and my abuela were making a trip to Walmart. I knew that a copy of Sonic Advance 3 was waiting for me in the video game section. My abuela knew that I wanted that game. She could see the excitement and determination in my eyes. But my mom didn't want her to buy the game for me. I didn't understand why at the time, but she probably didn't want my grandmother to spend her money on me. But we ended up sneaking off to the video game aisle and she bought the game for me. She had always wanted to make me happy. I remember the car ride coming back home and I was so excited, but I had to contain myself so my mom wouldn't suspect anything. It felt like the longest car ride ever. When we got home, I rushed to my room and I eagerly opened up the package. I was ecstatic as I tore off the perfectly sealed plastic wrapping and carelessly opened the cardboard box. Inside the box, there was the manual, a tiny poster, and most importantly, the game itself. I remember reading through the manual and admiring the character art. Sonic looked so cool with his backwards 3 pose. And I was amazed to see that you got to play as 5 different Sonic characters. I was so happy to see Amy and Cream in this game. Around this time, Amy Rose was still my favorite Sonic character because I was still obsessed with the color pink, and this was before I realized how poorly she acted in Sonic Battle. Cream the Rabbit was becoming one of my favorites as well because I loved playing as her in Sonic Advance 2. I put the game cartridge in my Game Boy Advance SP, and I was ready to play Sonic Advance 3. I remember being so blown away by the intro. Let me tell you, this is the most nostalgic video game intro ever. In the intro, Sonic and Tails are running as fast as they can to Dr. Eggman's base. Unfortunately, they were too late, as Eggman uses chaos control and splits the world apart into 7 pieces. Sounds familiar. The music really caught my attention. It sounds so dire. And I loved watching all the characters pose as they get introduced, and then watching Eggman carry through with his evil plans, and Sonic and Tails running together to stop him. I was instantly hooked on this game. The first minute of Sonic Advance 3 really set the tone for the entire game. I was, and still am, obsessed with the intro. Unfortunately, I didn't make it that far into the game for reasons that I will discuss later. But sometime in late 2011, early 2012, I picked the game back up and finished it. I still felt the same way as I played it when I was 8 years old. I still adored the intro, I loved the music and playing through the levels. I actually appreciated this game a lot more because of the tag team options and how each team has its own perks and special abilities. And since then, Sonic Advance 3 would be a game that I would occasionally visit just to play the levels. In September of 2014, my abuela was checked into hospice. I was devastated as I was really close to my abuela and always thought of her as a second mother. Around this time, I remember there was a Sonic charity stream going on, and some of the Sonic YouTubers that I used to watch were involved. There was a playthrough of Sonic Advance 3, and I remember some Call Me Johnny being a part of that one. I watched his content a lot at the time. I remember watching that stream in my spare time just to cheer me up, even if it was temporary. Once I finished watching that playthrough, I played Sonic Advance 3 when we weren't visiting my abuela. It's a big source of comfort for me, and it always has been. After my abuela passed away, I still go back playing Sonic Advance 3, and I'm reminded of the excitement I had when I first got the game. I don't mean to make anyone sad with the story, but I wanted to share how much this game means to me and the connection I have behind it. When I think about games that defined my childhood, Sonic Advance 3 is one that always comes to mind, even though I didn't make it that far as a kid. It's a game that's really special to me, and I know that it's special to many Sonic fans as well. I think out of all the Advance games, Sonic Advance 3 was the most ambitious. Based on its presentation, you could tell they were going for something that was inspired by the adventure games. This game takes place after Sonic Battle. As mentioned in the intro, Dr. Eggman uses the power of the Chaos Emeralds to split the world into 7 zones. In addition, Eggman creates a new robot named Gemerald, an exact replica of Emerald from Sonic Battle. Eggman uses Gemerald to attack Sonic and friends throughout the zones. As the story goes, Sonic and Tails find Knuckles, Amy Rose, and Cream the Rabbit, and they join Team Sonic on their quest to stop Dr. Eggman. Sonic Advance 3 is quite different compared to the previous Advance games. Advance 3 introduces the tag team duo. This is one of the fun aspects about this game. You get to select 2 characters. You control the first character you pick, and the second character is your tag team partner and can help you complete each act with their special abilities. As I mentioned earlier, you unlock the rest of the characters as you progress through the game. You unlock Knuckles in the 2nd zone, Amy in the 4th zone, and our dear Cream the Rabbit is the last character to unlock in Zone 6. I'm certain the developers did that on purpose because she is a game-breaking character, but honestly, that's why we love Cream the Rabbit. When you hold down the R button, the character you play as will hold your tag team partner. Once you release the R button, you can use your partner's special ability. Sonic can give you a burst of speed, Tails can carry you in the air or throw you vertically and help you reach higher areas. You can throw Knuckles to break enemies and obstacles, or you can glide on top of him. Amy can launch you high into the air with her hammer, and Cream will let you borrow cheese for a certain amount of time. Certain pairings have their own special perks as well. For example, if you pair Sonic and Cream together, Sonic has the ability to breathe underwater. Sonic also has a special homing attack. Or if you pair Sonic and Tails together, they can perform tricks off of springs and ramps. I love that Sonic Team implemented this. It makes you explore every tag team combination available and see what their unique abilities are. And you can strategize on how you'd beat the levels and boss fights. My favorite duos are Cream and Knuckles, Sonic and Cream and Sonic, Sonic and Tails and Sonic. Cream and Knuckles so I have that overpowered Sonic Advance 2 chow mechanics. Sonic and Cream so I have the ability to use cheese if I wanted, and I can easily get through the underwater levels as Sonic and not worry about drowning. The Cream and Sonic pair really grew on me. Being able to fly as Cream and utilize Sonic's speed boost to get through the levels is a huge plus. While Cheese is not as overpowered as the Cream and Knuckles pair, it still has really good range, and the attack animation is reminiscent of one of Cream's attacks from Sonic Battle. Sonic and Tails is a great pairing so I can run fast and utilize Tails' high jump, and Tails and Sonic so I can not only fly but utilize Sonic's speed boost as well. Also, performing cool tricks with Sonic and Tails is a plus. Amy and Cream paired together can do that as well. And I wanted to give an honorable mention for Tails and Amy. While this pairing isn't my go-to, it's a great combo to help you explore levels and reach higher areas. One thing that's not explicitly stated in the encyclopedia is that Tails has longer flight time when paired with Amy. The tag team duo is a great way to experiment and explore all the levels. There's a sense of strategy behind the different character combinations as well. Which pairing will get me to the end of the level the fastest? Which pairing is useful for exploring the levels and hunting for Chow? Which pairing ensures that I beat the boss quickly and make it to the next zone? Speaking of which, Sonic Advance 3 has 7 different zones, and each zone contains 3 acts, 1 boss, 1 special stage, and 2 minigames you can play to earn extra lives. The hub worlds are also a new addition to the Advance series. I know most people feel that this breaks the pace of the game, but I personally like them, and I especially enjoyed running around and exploring them as a kid. It also gives me the opportunity to play around with different character combinations before starting a level. The first zone is Route 99, a zone that's inspired by City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2. For the first Sonic zone, it really stands out. Usually the first zone in a 2D Sonic game is Green Hill inspired, but this one has you running past the city, and it's such a breath of fresh air. Also, there's never really been a city-based level in a 2D Sonic game, so Route 99 was really unique in that way. There's also a gorgeous cityscape in the background, and I love how you can see the city's reflection in the water. That is amazing attention to detail, and attention to detail is something common in the Sonic Advance series, especially in Advance 3. Running through Route 99 was so fun to play through as a kid. I loved exploring through all the acts and finding all the Chow hidden throughout the levels, and I could listen to the music over and over again. Route 99 is not only a great zone to start with, but a timeless and memorable zone as well. It did a great job with introducing players to Sonic Advance 3. The second zone is Sunset Hill. Ah yes, back when Green Hill Zone didn't feel so overused. Well, not really. Sega still loved using Green Hill Zone back in 2004. As a kid, I absolutely loved and adored this zone. The backdrop of the sunset looks beautiful. I wish I could actually be there. Not only that, but I absolutely adored the music. At the time, I did not play any of the Sonic games from the Genesis, so I had no idea that these were remixed versions of Green Hill Zone. I can't emphasize enough on just how gorgeous Sunset Hill is. Nearly 20 years later after this game came out, I still gush over how pretty this is. I don't know if this is my nostalgia bias, but Sunset Hill hits differently than Green Hill Zone. I like the visuals better, the music clicks with me more, and I don't get bored playing through this zone. The level design keeps things fresh in this zone too. For it being the second zone, there's a surprising amount of bottomless pits, so that definitely kept me on my toes. Sunset Hill had a couple of water sections as well, but I didn't mind because they were easy to get through. And it added more depth to the zone. I also enjoy the little things like bungee jumping and sliding down the waterfalls. I also love the character animations when sliding down those green and yellow poles. And overall, I feel that Sunset Hill has a better atmosphere. Again, this could be my nostalgia bias, but that's just how I feel. Like Route 99, I played through the Sunset Hill levels so much as a kid. Sadly, Sunset Hill is where my childhood journey ended with Sonic Advance 3. Embarrassingly enough, I was afraid to go to the boss zone. There was something about it that made me not want to fight the second boss. Eggman in general was a very intimidating character to me. In my Sonic Advance video, I talked about how, as a child, I avoided the boss fights because I was afraid of Eggman. But in Sonic Advance 2, I didn't seem to have a problem with the boss fights. I think a part of it has to do with the music. I remember Sonic Advance 3's boss music sounding a lot scarier as a kid. But when I listen to it now, I don't think it's that frightening. I mean, it's still pretty intimidating, but it's also pretty catchy. Sunset Hill is also the zone where you unlock Knuckles, and for some reason, I couldn't figure out how to unlock him as a kid. I figured that he was unlocked after defeating the boss. Turns out, you just have to beat Act 3 as Sonic. It doesn't matter who the tag team partner is, you just have to beat the third act as Sonic. You'll have a brief fight with Gemroll, and then the unlockable character will appear on screen. To think that all I had to do was switch Tails out with Sonic. But I really liked playing as Tails when I was a kid. His flying just made the game a lot easier for me. Fast forward to when I turned 15 and rediscovered my Sonic Game Boy Advance games. I had nothing to fear, I beat the boss, which was super easy and not scary in the slightest, and finally moved on to the next zone. Ocean-based zone. Probably my least favorite zone in the game. The level design isn't all that memorable and the scenery is a bit drab. The music is really good, and I especially love the music that plays in the zone's hub world. It sounds very mysterious yet somber, but this isn't a zone I play through very much. Recently I started playing through Ocean Base more for this video, but my opinion hasn't really changed. I think the levels can be a bit confusing to navigate, especially when you don't have a good pairing to run through. For example, there's one water section that takes you to a dead end. You don't need to run through that section unless you're collecting Chow, but I just feel the design could have been better to at least keep the pace moving. I think the other zones do a better job with the level design and making it easy to navigate. Interestingly, the encyclopedia says that this is an underwater facility that's been flooded, which most likely is Dr. Eggman's doing. I never really thought about what this zone was and why it existed, or how Sonic even found it for that matter. While I do think that it's the weakest zone in all the Sonic Advance games, I still think there's something to appreciate with the music and eerie scenery. The fourth zone is Toy Kingdom, an exciting and joyful amusement park that has a bunch of balloons, rockets, and sliding panda cups you can ride. The encyclopedia describes it as a bright and cheery theme park turned death trap thanks to Dr. Eggman. When I was playing through this zone so many years ago, I never really thought about how this fun, whimsical place was being controlled by Dr. Eggman. This doesn't look like a death trap to me. Well, I guess except for the crushing blocks and spikes, and those jack-in-the-box things that could either be a spring or a bar of spikes. It's very easy to get hit by enemies and even crushed, but the level is so cute and the colors make this place feel so vibrant. This perfectly contrasts with Ocean-based zone. It's bright and lively and the music is perky and energetic. The background design itself is like a mix of Casino Paradise and Music Plant Zone. You see the big Toy Kingdom in the background, but the sky is much lighter and has a rainbow that complements the scenery. I love watching the balloons float away in the background as well. Can you imagine if this was a real amusement park? I think it could give Disney a run for its money. The fifth zone is Twinkle Snow. Twinkle Snow is my favorite ice level in all the Sonic Advance trilogy. I'd even go as far as to say that it's my favorite ice level ever. The visuals are so stunning. I find the northern lights complement the area really well, and it's such a pretty zone to run through. I really love the pink hues. The level design is fair and also keeps things interesting. The underwater sections in Twinkle Snow provide a good challenge, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. Again, there's something about the levels that make me wish I was actually there in person. I can't emphasize enough on how I think this is the best ice level in any video game. Don't get me wrong, I do love Ice Paradise a lot, and it's definitely a close second, but I find myself gravitating more towards Twinkle Snow. I find the visuals more aesthetically pleasing and the music to be mesmerizing as well. The sixth zone is Cybertrack, the level of the future. I personally prefer this level's aesthetic over Technobase. I think it's easier to see what's going on with the white background. With Technobase, it was sometimes hard to gauge what was a platform and what wasn't. I will say that Cybertrack was so intimidating to me when I first played it. Even when I was a kid, the image preview for Cybertrack looked so perplexing and mysterious. Every now and then, I would go to my time trial record in the options menu, mainly to look at all the small images of each zone. I would always be curious about what kind of level Cybertrack would be, and imagine that it would be an intense experience to play through. And my 8-year-old imagination turned out to be correct. This is where the levels get a lot more challenging, and there are more bottomless pits you can fall down to. With that being said, the first and second act are a blast to play through. The third act is a bit more difficult, and there's lots of waiting and making sure you're timing your jumps correctly. I definitely got my fair share of game overs in Cybertrack, especially in Act 3. The cyber-related levels are definitely a product of the early 2000s, but I personally miss those types of levels from Sonic, and I hope it's something that Sonic Team may go back to one of these days. The encyclopedia keeps things vague when describing Cybertrack as well. A dizzying cyber world where up can be down and pits await you above and below. As I mentioned before, this is also the zone where you find Cream the Rabbit. How the heck did she get here? I have no idea. It would have made more sense for her to be found in Toy Kingdom. In fact, I thought she was going to be the next unlockable character after Knuckles, because she's the 4th character shown in the roster. And maybe that was the original plan, but I'm sure the developers had her purposely be the last character to unlock because they probably didn't want people to cheese through the underwater levels. But now that you have the most powerful and cutest character on your team, it's time to face the 7th and final zone. Chaos Angel. Sonic and friends return to Angel Island and they have to get to the Master Emerald before it's too late. How do I even begin to talk about Chaos Angel Zone? The visuals are stunning. The music is incredible. The level design is unique and challenging. All of this combined creates an intense atmosphere. For the last zone, it truly does end off with a bang. Chaos Angel Zone is like a trial. It tests your platforming abilities to the fullest. There are a lot of bottomless pits throughout each act. Unstable platforms, lots of hazards like boulders and crushing walls. But my god, does it feel good when you finish out a level. I know I've gushed over the soundtrack for the Sonic Advance games many times, but I really want to take the time to share how Chaos Angel's music makes me feel. There's something special about the music for Chaos Angel Zone. In my opinion, it stands out from the rest of the Advance trilogy. Listening to it makes me feel that we are in the presence of something sinister. Starting with the hub world music, it sounds very gloomy, but as the track builds up, it begins to sound more threatening. The music for Act 1 sounds exciting, but it still carries that menacing and dangerous tone throughout the track. The music for Act 2 sounds so sinister and ominous, but it also captivates me. I probably would have been afraid to play through this act as a kid, but playing through Act 2 now is such a thrilling experience, and the music plays a huge part in that. The music for Act 3 is also a banger, and like Act 1, it's exciting to listen to, but the music also hints that something treacherous is coming our way. The Act 2 music may have fit this level better, but honestly, I can see why the developers laid out the tracks this way. Act 3's music is more thrilling to listen to, and it closes off the last platforming level in Chaos Angel Zone very nicely. The graphics for Chaos Angel are also aesthetically pleasing. I love the bisexual sky, it's so pretty to look at, and the 2 moons in the background make it so ethereal. I know it's supposed to be dystopian, but I want to be there. Within Chaos Angel Zone, Sonic and friends will traverse the ruins and abandoned temples of Angel Island. There's a lot of detail and intricate symbols written on the blue walls. It feels as if we're running through holy ground that's been abandoned for a long period of time. For a Game Boy Advance game, this design is highly impressive, and I applaud the developers for taking the time to make these levels look so stunning. Chaos Angel Zone even inspired me to do a little painting. It's definitely not perfect, but I have it displayed on my wall. Again, I can't emphasize enough on how gorgeous Chaos Angel Zone looks. Personally, Chaos Angel is my favorite final zone out of any 2D Sonic game. This isn't just the final Sonic Advance 3 level, it's the penultimate level for the entire Sonic Advance trilogy. Sonic Team truly did an excellent job with closing out the series with Chaos Angel Zone. Just to recap, the graphics for all of the Advance games are so beautiful. Personally, I think Sonic Advance 3 had the most aesthetically pleasing levels out of the Sonic Advance trilogy. I know this might be controversial to say, and this could be my nostalgia bias talking, but I personally think that Sonic Advance 3 looks even better than Sonic Mania. Yeah, I know, I said what I said and I meant every word. Before I talk about the bosses, I want to briefly discuss the overall level design and enemy placement. Sonic Advance 3 does receive a fair share of criticism, mostly towards the overall level design and enemy placement, especially towards the last two zones. Cybertruck and Chaos Angel is basically just one bottomless pit with some platforms here and there. I'm joking, but I'm also not. There's so many ways you can fall to your death in both of these zones. There's always that moment of anxiety when you fall long distances because you don't know if you're going to land safely on a platform or fall to your death. With the screen size of the Game Boy Advance, it can be hard to anticipate when an enemy is just ahead. And naturally, as Sonic characters, you run really fast and you can easily get hit. This has happened to me countless times, and I've never really had a perfect run before. The game developers were quite unforgiving when it came to the enemy placement. Sometimes you'll be running fast and then you bump into an enemy and lose all your rings. Also, Dimps is notorious for placing spikes near the edge of every platform in the Advance games, but they really overdid it in Advance 3, and it is unfair because most of the time you don't see it coming. However, it doesn't make the game unplayable, not at all. Personally for me, it's just a minor nuisance and I'm able to beat the levels and have a great time doing it. It doesn't matter to me if I don't get a perfect run. I also think that this game does a really good job with difficulty progression. Chaos Angel Zone is the most challenging zone by far, and it doesn't feel like there's a huge difficulty spike in the middle of the game. Other than Ocean-based Zone being a bit confusing at times, Sonic Advance 3 doesn't have any bad levels, in my opinion. But of course, it's not all about the levels, there are also the bosses. You will occasionally run into Gemerald and have a fight with him. His boss fights are pretty easy, but he does get more powerful as you progress through the game. Personally, I think the bosses are the weakest part of Sonic Advance 3, but that's not to say all the bosses are bad. I still think most of the bosses are fun to play through. Once again, the designs of the machines are a bit unusual. Was Eggman starting to run out of ideas? On Route 99, you have the Egg Hammer. Eggman is sitting in a giant hammer trying to crush Sonic, but it opens Eggman up for attack because he's just stuck in one place. The Sunset Hill boss has Eggman in a giant mechanical wheel. Yes, he can move around freely, but it doesn't help because Sonic can easily push him out of the way. Again, not very conventional. Ocean Base's boss steps things up with the Egg Foot and tries to crush the players with this machine. But again, it's quite easy to attack Eggman and he didn't really think this one through. But by far the funniest boss has to be the Egg Cube from Toy Kingdom. He's just sitting in this giant cube, throwing projectiles and Gemerald. But once Sonic and friends defeat him, he just drops. Like, bye. What was he even thinking with this one? Twinkle Snow is the hardest boss in my opinion. Dr. Eggman tries to chase Sonic and friends up the icy tower and shoot a giant spiked ball at you. There are faulty platforms you can jump on, and these can hurt Eggman if he gets hit by one. While you're trying to hit Eggman with the falling platforms, you're also trying to plan out your next move and make sure you don't fall to your death. I definitely got quite a few game overs with this boss. Cybertruck's boss is another one I struggle with. Eggman tries to play a hostile game of pinball with Sonic and friends. Eggman will launch projectiles at you, and you need to hit them on time and hope that it attacks Eggman. While the boss is easier than the Twinkle Snow boss, it does take me some time to beat it. Sometimes the projectiles will miss Eggman altogether, and it can take a while to land a hit on him. Chaos Angel's first boss is a repeat of Cosmic Angel's boss from Sonic Advance. Depending on who you play as, this boss can be challenging or fairly easy. With Cream and Knuckles, you can defeat this boss with ease, all thanks to the OP Chow mechanics. I want to take the time to recognize the Boss 7 music. It's very haunting and intimidating. This would definitely scare me as a kid. Boss themes like this are what really sets Sonic apart from other children's media. While Sonic is predominantly catered towards kids, the developers are not afraid to create stories and music with serious undertones. After defeating the Chaos Angel boss, you are taken to Alter Emerald. You fight Gemral one last time, and this is definitely the most challenging battle against him, but it's not difficult by any means. He can teleport and shoot a barrage of missiles at you, and it can be challenging to dodge his attacks. I love the ambiance Alter Emerald provides. The purple-pink sky adds a nice touch to this zone. The music sounds ominous and foreboding. It really gives me that uneasy feeling that something bad is gonna happen. One neat touch about Alter Emerald's music is that it uses leitmotifs of Holy Summit from Sonic Battle. In fact, quite a few tracks in Sonic Advance 3 incorporate music from Sonic Battle. Alter Emerald is one of my favorite tracks in Sonic Advance 3, and I feel that it's so underrated. That segue from Gemral's battle into the final boss is just I don't even know if I can put into words. For one, the music transitions so smoothly. I love how the guitar riffs introduces the final boss. I understand that the GBA sound chip isn't the best in terms of sound quality, but the composer still managed to make it work. It's an intimidating boss theme, and it complements the final boss so well. The ground shakes and you watch your characters lose balance as Eggman appears with this massive robot. The Hyper Egg Robo. I headcanon that Dr. Eggman spent nearly all of his boss budget on this right here. Depending on which pairing you have, this could be really difficult or fairly easy. You can see the Master Emerald in the background, and this extra detail adds such a nice touch to the fight. Eggman is literally battling over the Master Emerald. The symbolism, just absolutely amazing. Eggman will try to knock down the unstable platforms to make you fall to your death. In the last phase of the fight, he launches projectiles you have to avoid, and he'll try to crush you with his giant machine hands. But damn, does it feel good when you finally beat the boss. If you manage to get all the Chaos Emeralds and beat the Alter Emerald boss as Sonic, you get this little extra cutscene. Gemral goes berserk and steals the Chaos Emeralds and transforms into his super state. He flies up into outer space, and because he's programmed like Emerald, it's implied that he's going to destroy the Earth. Thankfully, the Chaos Emeralds are still intact, and Sonic uses them to become Super Sonic and chases after Gemral. Dr. Eggman follows Sonic, and they team up together to defeat Gemral. And no, I haven't had the chance to experience non-aggression. I'm still working on getting that last Chaos Emerald. Another criticism Sonic Advance 3 gets is the process of collecting the Chaos Emeralds. In each zone, there are about 10 Chao to find in the Act Rings and Hub Worlds. And because Sonic is all about going fast, it can be easy to miss the Chao along the way, especially in later zones where they become more clever at hiding and the levels are much bigger. In my Sonic Advance video, I mentioned that Sonic Advance was the easiest when it comes to collecting the Chaos Emeralds. But in that game, I only collected 2 so far. But I managed to collect more Chaos Emeralds in Sonic Advance 3, so did I lie? I want to rephrase that and say, Sonic Advance will put you through the least amount of work when it comes to collecting the Chaos Emeralds, but in my opinion, I think Sonic Advance 3 has the easiest special stage. You just have to jump through more hoops to unlock the special stage. I personally didn't mind collecting Chao because I loved exploring all the levels, but yes, I definitely used a guide to find some of the Chao. Thankfully, the game saves your progress when you find a Chao. Once you collect a Chao, you don't have to worry about collecting it again, unless you delete your save file. After you collect all the Chao for that particular zone, you'll have to find a special key to unlock the special stage. I think that developers could have cut this part out and have the special stage ready since you collected all the chow. This forces you to play levels to farm for keys, especially in later zones where the special stages become more challenging. I would say the first 3 to 4 zones you could get away with just collecting one special key. It isn't until you get to Twinkle Snow where the stages become more challenging. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't mind collecting the special keys too much because I already enjoy running through the levels anyway. Well, with one exception. But I can understand this being a chore for other people. Once you have a special key, you can gain access to the special stage. A special spring is hidden somewhere in each hub world that will take you to the special stage. If you have at least one special key, you'll be able to play through the stage. The special stage itself has you riding the tornado, and you have to collect a certain amount of rings before the stage ends. The special stages will progressively get more challenging, and there are more enemies you have to avoid. But you can jump on the gray enemies to collect 5 rings. But if you don't time your jump correctly, you could get hit and lose rings instead. So there's kind of a high risk, high reward thing going there. Occasionally you'll see a ring booster which looks like a blue floating hoop. If you touch it, you'll get an increase in speed, and it will double the amount of rings you collect. Getting the ring booster is mandatory for the later stages. Like I said before, I think it's much easier to collect rings here compared to the other Sonic Advance games. With the special stages from Sonic Advance 1, I feel like I was missing rings left and right. I probably just have really bad depth perception. But I also felt that it was hard to control your character in the Sonic Advance 2 special stages. With that being said, Sonic Advance 3's special stages are not perfect. The controls are very stiff, making it difficult to maneuver the plane and catch rings. However, the layout for each special stage is fairly similar and has a mostly fair difficulty progression. Personally for me, I can get the first 5 Chaos Emeralds in one try. Zone 6 takes me a few times, but it's manageable. Zone 7's special stage, on the other hand, is ridiculously hard. You basically have to collect every ring and be perfect with your jumps. This stage forces you to jump on the enemies to get more rings, which is already risky because if you don't time your jumps correctly, you could take damage and lose rings. Shadow, you want to complain about the damn 4th Chaos Emerald? The 7th Chaos Emerald is clearly the worst. This is the one exception where I don't like to collect the special keys for this stage. As much as I like playing through Chaos Angel Acts 1 and 2, I always end up dying at some point in the stage. So I collect special keys in Act 3 as Cream and Knuckles instead. I know for a fact that it's going to take me several attempts to beat the special stage, so I usually collect 9 special keys, which is the maximum amount you can earn. Act 3 is the quickest and easiest act in Chaos Angel, but it's still time consuming to collect 9 keys. I finished Act 3 with an average of 2 minutes and 43 seconds. That's nearly 25 minutes of special key collecting. On top of that, the special stage is about 2 minutes long. So if you fail all 9 attempts, that's about 45 minutes down the drain, assuming that you didn't die at any point while collecting special keys. So to do that over and over again can get very draining, and you lose your confidence. Somehow you get even worse the more you play, and you just give up. However, despite all the flaws with collecting Chaos Emeralds in Sonic Advance 3, and all of the stress and grief that Special Stage 7 has caused me, I still prefer this over Sonic Advance 2. Advance 3 special stages are much easier for me, and at least Advance 3 saves your progress every time you collect a Chow or get a special key by the end of a level. It's just a shame that I was never able to get that last Chaos Emerald. Holy shit. I got the last Chaos Emerald. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. It took me 18 years, but I got the last Chaos Emerald. Holy crap. Oh my god. Yes, that's right. 18 years. 18 years after Sonic Advance 3 was released, I finally got the last Chaos Emerald. I could not believe it when it happened. I thought I was never going to be good enough to beat that goddamn special stage. But after 30-something tries on that day, I finally did it. I don't know how to fully express just how big of a deal this is for me. When I got Sonic Advance 3 as a kid, I always wanted to finish this game and see it all the way through. I was at least able to get the first ending as a teenager, but I couldn't make it past that last special stage. I honestly thought I was never going to 100% the game because going back and forth with collecting special keys and attempting the special stages and failing was just so hard and draining. Instead, I would watch playthroughs of the true ending on YouTube, but I was bummed that I never got to experience the true final boss and ending on my own. Until now. Leading to non-aggression, the pinnacle moment of the Advanced Trilogy. Super Sonic must work with Eggman to expose Super General's weak spot and attack him as much as possible. It feels so surreal to see Sonic and Eggman genuinely work together. Obviously, Dr. Eggman is doing this for his best interest, but it's interesting to see him follow Sonic's lead. Even as Sonic gets hit, Eggman will remain by his side. It truly does suit the name non-aggression. The boss fight itself is challenging, but doable. You have to use your tag action with Eggman to attack General. You charge up your attack by holding down the R button. By releasing the R button, Eggman will attack General, and this exposes General's weak spot. The longer you charge your attack, the longer General's weak spot is exposed. To attack the red orb, you must dash into it as Super Sonic by pressing the A button. During the fight, General will shoot missiles and lasers at you. Getting hit will paralyze Sonic for a short period of time. It can be easy to lose track of time and run low on rings. You have to hit General's weak spot about 12 times, so this fight is a balance of collecting rings and knowing the right time to strike. The boss music is a fan favorite and uses leitmotifs of Emerald's theme from Sonic Battle. Not to be dramatic, but it sounds so transcendent and otherworldly. Again, it suits the boss fight so well, especially with Super Sonic soaring through space, trying to defeat General before it's too late. The boss pinch sounds chaotic and intense, perfectly reflecting General's lack of stability. I have to say, playing this boss on my own instead of watching a playthrough just hits differently for me. I don't know if that has to do with the connection I have with Sonic Advance 3 and how special this game has always been to me, but I felt really sentimental when I played the final boss for the first time. And I've played non-aggression many times since I've unlocked it, and I still feel that way. When you think about it, this is Sonic's final fight of his early 2000s era, and that's part of what makes this fight so meaningful. But finally, after one more hit, General is defeated and the world returns back to its normal state. Sonic, Tails, Cream, and Amy travel back home, while Knuckles guards over the Master Emerald. In the credits, Sonic and friends are making their way back home and we see them run through previous stages. Cream and her mother Vanilla rediscover General at the beach. Tails repairs him as Cream watches, and now he's a kind robot, just like Emerald, and he stays with Cream, Cheese, and Vanilla. This ending, it just warms my heart. After the credits, there's a brief cutscene of Cream chasing after General, but she accidentally trips and begins to cry. General comes back and comforts her, and they play some more. I really just gush over this. Losing Emerald from Sonic Battle was just so hard to process. So to see that Gemerald gets a second chance and lives happily with Cream and Vanilla just makes me have so many feelings. The ending is simple but good. It ties everything up with a neat bow. Gemerald doesn't appear in future Sonic games, but he is included as a character in the Archie and IDW comics, which, thank goodness, they are preserving Gemerald's legacy, as they should. I'm not familiar with the Archie comics, but in the IDW comics, he is the bodyguard of the ultimate bunny queen, Cream the Rabbit, her greatness. But I'm just overjoyed that after all this time, I finally got to experience the true ending for myself. 8-year-old Mandy's wishes have finally come true. I understand Sonic Advance 3 has its fair share of flaws, but I still think it's an amazing Sonic game. I always get that same excitement as I did when I was 8 years old, playing this game for the first time. I absolutely love and adore the attention to detail this game has. The character animations are exceptionally good for the Game Boy Advance. Every character's idle animations are just so cute to watch. Cream falls asleep, Knuckles does push-ups, Amy will watch over Sonic, and if she's not partnered with Sonic, she'll wave at you and try to get your attention. They even have animations when they look like they're about to fall. Amy's animation in particular is really cute. She looks at you as if she were asking, "You wouldn't really let me fall, would you?" Cream the Rabbit in particular probably has the most character animations in Sonic Advance 3. Of course, her rail grinding and trick animations are carried over from Sonic Advance 2, but she also has some new, unique animations as well. When Cream is paired up with Sonic, she wears a life ring in the water, and she has these super cute swimming animations. Look at her, she's having so much fun. Also, the way she takes a breath from an air bubble is just so adorable. She even has different facial expressions when Tails is carrying her or when she gets a high jump. They took the time to animate that. And again, watching her run after Gemerald and how he comforts her when she falls, it's just so sweet and heartwarming. I know I sound like a broken record, but I just admire the love and dedication the developers put into Cream the Rabbit during the Game Boy Advance era. She's the main character for Sonic Advance 2 and 3, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Sonic Advance 3 also had some voice acting. This was my first time hearing the original voiceovers for Sonic, Tails, and Eggman. For my first time listening, Ryan Drummond left such a great impression on Sonic. This was also Dean Bristow's last performance as Eggman before he passed away, and even though it's a few lines, it's still very iconic. Rest in peace. I think the voice acting adds such a nice touch, even if there isn't that much of it. Sonic Advance 3 is an innovative masterpiece. It takes similar aspects from Advance 1 and 2, but changes up the formula with the tag team system. It was like a new way of platforming at the time, and the game provided me with a sense of strategy on which characters I wanted to play as. Sonic Advance 3 was definitely more inspired by the adventure games and heroes. When you think about it, Sonic Advance 3 is like a mini Sonic Heroes. Even the logo kind of looks similar to Sonic Heroes. The tag team duo, beautiful stages, fun level design, and exhilarating soundtrack truly makes this game feel like an adventure experience neatly packaged in a 2D Sonic game. And that's why it's one of my favorite Sonic games of all time. The Sonic Advance games are definitely underrated in comparison to the other 2D Sonic games, but it introduced younger millennials and older Gen Zers to the Sonic franchise altogether. This trilogy reinvented 2D Sonic. As I've talked about each Advance game, I noticed that there are repeats in level locations throughout the trilogy. There's also similarities in gameplay mechanics and other little details, like how all 3 games involve the Sonic characters going to outer space. And yet, each Advance game managed to keep things fresh, which is very challenging to do. Sometimes a series of games can get stale. Personally, the one that comes to mind is the new Super Mario Bros. Series. I loved the first two games and enjoyed them a lot as a kid. But New Super Mario Bros. Would continue to use the same type of locations, gameplay style, and similar music. Looking at the overall level design and atmosphere, there wasn't a lot of variation and nothing really changed throughout the series. I think because of that, many fans got tired of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. Personally, I found myself growing bored of the series. And on top of that, I felt disappointed in the lack of innovation as the series progressed. And I also felt that New Super Mario Bros. 2 and U were a bit of a cash grab. But I never felt this way about the Advance Trilogy. Like New Super Mario Bros., the Advance Trilogy was released very close together. About a year-long gap for each of these games, and yet all of them felt fresh and exciting in their own way. I'm aware that my nostalgia bias may be at play, but when comparing the two series, it's evident that Sonic Team genuinely tried to provide a new experience for each installment. And that's not to say that every zone was completely different. Like New Super Mario Bros., there was a repeat in certain types of level locations. For example, each advanced game has an ice level and a green hill level, but the developers managed to make each zone stand out in its own way. Each zone had its own identity and felt unique. And I just can't say the same for New Super Mario Bros. While Nintendo introduced new power-ups and the level design was fairly different throughout the games, I think the repetition in stage locations, bosses, and music is what ultimately led to the downfall of the New Super Mario Bros. Series. But that's another story for another time. Also, I just want to say, if you happen to love New Super Mario Bros. 2 and U, I think that's really great. I'm glad you got more enjoyment out of those games than I did. And there's absolutely no shame in liking those games. These are just my opinions, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad or embarrassed for enjoying a game that I disliked. But back to the Advance Trilogy. The Sonic Advance Trilogy in general are such detailed games, from the music to the level design, the gameplay, and the graphics. In my opinion, the finer details of each advanced game makes the experience more memorable and fulfilling, and each game brought something new to the table. Nearly 2 decades later, the Sonic Advance Trilogy has its fair share of passionate fans with fond memories of each game. It's hard for most games to live up to that timeless legacy, let alone an entire trilogy. To me, it's a testament to how creative and innovative the Sonic Advance Trilogy was. And for me, the Advance Trilogy will forever be a staple of what it meant to be a kid in the early 2000s. Most of the Sonic games that I've talked about in this series are going to be 20 years old soon, or are already 20 years old. And I don't know how to feel about that. I'm in my mid-20s now, and it feels surreal to grow up with this franchise. I got my copy of the encyclopedia around December of 2021, and reading through it was mostly a fun experience, and it made me reminisce of the joyful memories I had with these games. I was intrigued reading through all the descriptions and commentary, but there was a part of me that also felt sad. Sometimes I wish I could go back in time and relive being a kid again, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. I miss the simpler times. I miss waking up in the mornings and watching cartoons while I eat breakfast. I miss playing with my friends after school. I miss that feeling of pure excitement when you get the toy or game you've always wanted. I miss not having to worry about the future and just living in the moment. I miss my abuela. At the beginning of the encyclopedia, there was a letter from Takashi Iizuka. It's a heartfelt and genuine letter, and I'm not going to lie, I teared up while reading it. Specifically where it says, "You might have memories of happy times spent playing with your friends, The joy you felt unwrapping a present from your parents, or even arduous times you spent hunched over your desk, hard at work, studying. Perhaps there are some for whom memories of a Sonic game are linked to important milestone events like getting married or the birth of a child. As you reconnect with Sonic's long history throughout the 30 years represented in this book, it would make me happy if it brought old but important memories back to life for you. I knew exactly what he meant. The games that you love, you build memories and connections with those games. You even share those connections with friends, family, even strangers. And you associate those games with what was going on in your life at the time. I graduated college in the winter of 2017, and around that time, Sonic Forces was released. That was such a pivotal time for me, and one of the things I did when I had downtime was play Sonic Forces. Despite all the flack and criticism that Sonic Forces got, I still love that game. I kid you not, I had a genuinely good experience playing it for the first time. Even games that are considered bad got me through really hard times. Admittedly, Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06 are comfort games for me. I know that probably sounds really weird to most of you, but I can explain that in another video. I'll always associate the Sonic Advance Trilogy and Sonic Battle with my early childhood. And I still have all of my Sonic games for the Game Boy Advance, and I have no intention of ever giving them away. You can offer all the money in the world and I still wouldn't give it up because it's just that special to me. While I do miss those simpler times of the early 2000s, I'll always be thankful for the joy that these Sonic games have provided me with. The early 2000s really does feel like Sonic's peak. I mean, so much happened in that period. The release of Sonic Adventure 2, the Sonic Advance Trilogy, Sonic Heroes and Sonic Battle, the premiere of Sonic X, the Sonic McDonald's toys. Even though I hated the taste of meat, I wanted to go to McDonald's just to get a Sonic toy. But I think we're currently in a Sonic renaissance, and I believe that Sonic Team is reaching a new peak. Sonic 2 came out in theaters earlier this year, and it was absolutely amazing. We're getting a third Sonic movie, and Shadow's gonna be in it. Sonic Prime will be out soon, and I have such high hopes for that. I was super excited for Sonic Frontiers, and I couldn't wait to play it. At the time of this recording, I've played about 10 hours, and I am just enchanted by this game. I cannot put it down. Is it perfect? No. But goddamn, it's an enthralling and captivating experience. To say that it's a huge improvement from Sonic Forces is an understatement. Even before Frontiers released, you could just tell. The marketing on Frontiers has been so much better compared to Forces. They have more to show. The developers genuinely seem excited and proud to show off Frontiers, and rightfully so. The Sonic franchise has been under a lot of scrutiny for well over a decade now. Critics, game journalists, and even Sonic fans themselves put a lot of focus on picking apart Sonic games, regardless if it's good, bad, or just average. I understand wanting a franchise to do better, but I think being critical to the extreme overlooks the enjoyable aspects and positive impact that these games have on people. Sonic doesn't need to be perfect. He should just stay true to who he is, as cheesy as that sounds. Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Battle, and the Sonic Advance Trilogy are not perfect by any means, but they're really fun and they bring joy to a lot of people. And by the end of the day, that's the most important thing a video game can do. As a longtime Sonic fan, I'm really excited for what's to come for this franchise, and I hope you are too. Well, this marks the end of my Sonic in the early 2000s video series. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and an even bigger thank you if you watched the entire series. Reflecting and writing about the memories I had with these games was a surprisingly emotional experience for me, so it means a lot that you watched all the way to the end. If you enjoyed watching, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. And please let me know what you think about Sonic Advance 3 and all the other Sonic games from the early 2000s. I'd love to hear any memories you've had with those games. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.